It's something you will only hear on this show. Republicans, you better get ready for battle because confirmation hearings start this week, and Democrats, they're going to pull out every left-wing tactic from their worn-out liberal playbook. And tonight, we expose the anatomy of a smear, and that's tonight's opening monologue. All right, so the first of many confirmation hearings for President-elect Trump's cabinet nominees now begin tomorrow. First up, Attorney General nominee Senator Jeff Sessions. Now, Senate Democrats and their allies on the left, they have made it very clear what they intend to do, and that's unfairly paint Senator Sessions, a good man, as a racist. Now, as we've told you about this on the program before, it is a tactic that Democrats deploy every election, and it's something they've used, sadly, successfully to undermine and even stop Republican nominees in the past. Here's the evidence. Now take a look at President Obama on the campaign trail just last year trying to link Donald Trump to the Ku Klux Klan. Take a look.
If you tolerate supporters who are Klan sympathizers before you're elected, then you'll receive their support once you're in office. If you accept the support of Klan sympathizers, the Klan, and hesitate when asked about that support, then you'll tolerate that support when you're in office. If you accept the support of Klan sympathizers before you are president, you will accept their support after you're president.
Now, if you were surprised by that, well, you shouldn't be. Why? Because Democrats, they resort to these tactics to try and scare you, the voters, into supporting them. Here's Vice President Joe Biden. He's doing the same thing back in 2012. Watch this.
Look at what they value and look at their budget and what they're proposing. Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Pretty disgraceful. And then you have one of the worst offenders, former Vice President Al Gore. Take a look at this.
It's wrong what the leader of the Republican Party and this Congress are doing in blocking an accurate census because they don't want to count everyone that they don't think they can count on. They are in favor of affirmative action if you can dunk the basketball or sink a three-point shot. But they're not in favor of it if you merely have the potential to be a leader in your community and bring people together. Don't tell me we've got a colorblind society.
And there's a lot more, sadly. Here are a few other examples from over the years. Take a look.
When you don't vote, you let another church explode. When you don't vote, you allow another cross to burn.
On June 7, 1998, in Texas, my father was killed. He was beaten, chained, and then dragged 3 miles to his death, all because he was black. So when Governor George W. Bush refused to support hate crimes legislation, it was like my father was killed all over again.
Well, George Bush supported the death penalty for the people that were responsible for that heinous crime. Now, all of these examples are ridiculous, but the Democrats, they have no shame, they have no moral compass, and this just proves how low the left is willing to go to scare you, the voters, and they want to get their way. Now, remember back in 1987, Ronald Reagan, he nominated Robert Bork, one of the brightest judicial minds in the country, to serve on the Supreme Court, and Democrats, led by liberal Senator Ted Kennedy, immediately used scare tactics to destroy this man and destroy the nomination. Take a look.
Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions, blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters, rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids, and school children could not be taught about evolution. Writers and artists would be censured at the whim of government.
Now, sure enough, after Kennedy's stunt on the Senate floor, Democrats were able to block Bork's nomination. That's where you hear the term borked. And you have now Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. During his Senate confirmation, Democrats brought out his former colleague, Anita Hill, to make sexual harassment allegations against Thomas. Now, Thomas eventually referred to the process as a high-tech lynching. It was so bad. Take a look at this.
This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks. who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
Sad. Now that brings us to President-elect Donald Trump's Attorney General nominee, Republican Senator Jeff Sessions. Now, he will start his confirmation process tomorrow by appearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Liberals, they have already signaled that they'll be playing the race card by reviving decades-old allegations against Senator Sessions. Now, these allegations that if you do just a little bit of research, the media will never do it, you'll actually see that they're proven to be false. But what the left won't tell you is this. Jeff Sessions is a man with a civil rights record that people should envy. As a U.S. attorney, he prosecuted members of the Ku Klux Klan. As a U.S. senator, he has repeatedly praised civil rights icon Rosa Parks, spearheaded the effort to award her with a Congressional Gold Medal. He's often praised by his colleagues and has worked on several key bipartisan bills with senators like Richard Blumenthal, Dick Durbin, even Ted Kennedy, and former Senator, then Senator Zell Miller. Democrats won't tell you that Sessions was one of 19 Republicans who voted to confirm President Obama's Attorney General, Eric Holder. No. Instead, the Democrats will try to smear Senator Sessions in an effort to damage the incoming Trump administration. Here now with reaction, the author of the best-selling book Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. I wanted to give a history, and you're the historian, of all the times, every election this happens, every confirmation season this happens, and it seems like Jeff Sessions is going to bear the brunt of this tomorrow. And I just wanted to remind people of just how low people will sink in an effort because they have political differences. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it's amazing how incompetent and lacking in imagination the liberal Democrats have become. I mean, if this is the best they can do, they might as well go home and relax. First of all, as you know, Jeff Sessions not only prosecuted the head of the Ku Klux Klan and won the case, he also got an $8 million judgment against the Klan in Alabama, virtually bankrupting it and driving it out of business. So it's pretty hard to argue that these are the behaviors of somebody who was in any way racist. I also think if you look at his whole career as a senator, it's quite clear that he has been courteous, he has been bipartisan, he has been willing to work with people, as you point out, in getting the former Attorney General approved. You don't get much better than getting Senator Leahy, who himself is pretty liberal, to say that you've been doing a good job on a bipartisan basis. So my guess is after these guys are making noise to raise money, they're making noise to appeal George Soros and their left-wing activists. They're making noise in a desperate hope to hold together the African-American community for Democrats. But in the end, it ain't going to work. Jeff Sessions is going to be approved. And then the burden is going to be on the Trump administration to prove that it's committed to a new deal for African-Americans and to prove that it really is concerned about the inner city. I think if that works, then we're in a different world by next year.
Is it fair for somebody like myself to look at Hillary Clinton? She once praised a former Klansman, Robert Byrd, as her mentor. Or, you know, we're playing Senator Kennedy attacking, I think, one of the smartest constitutional minds that could have served on the Supreme Court, Robert Bork. He's a guy that left a woman in a car in Chappaquiddick. And I'm thinking they get such high praise from Democrats. You can argue, yeah, it happened years ago. But what they're talking about with Senator Sessions happened 30-plus years ago.
Look, nobody in America who's rational is going to look at a 30-year-old joke, first of all, and remember it, and second, think, what do you mean? What are you talking about? We're talking about a U.S. senator reelected again and again by his constituents, a man who is recognized by his colleagues, somebody who has played a major role in a presidential campaign, and the best evidence they can come up with is 30 or 35 years ago? I mean, that's why I said at the beginning here, Sean, what I'm struck with is how brain dead the left is. I mean, it's kind of like the AMC series, The Walking Dead. I mean, these are folks who get up in the morning and walk down the hall yelling racist, 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 or someone. They have about 9 terms they memorized in childhood, apparently, and that's all they got left.
Yeah.
They have no ideas, no solutions, nothing positive. And I think we ought to treat a lot of it, frankly, with derision. This is the behavior of a pathetic generation of left-wingers who have nothing left except chanting old slogans.
Let me ask you this. I'm hearing from conservatives, there's some rumbling. Congress is raising the debt ceiling by $9 trillion over the next 10 years. They're talking about $1 trillion stimulus. I don't know how they're going to pay for it. Senator Rick Santorum brought up the issue over the weekend that he's shocked at this late date Republicans have not coalesced behind a single plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. Are those valid criticisms? Are you worried about any of those issues?
Well, I think they're valid criticisms, although the debt ceiling part, I think, is...
But it's against Congress more.
You have to raise the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, you have to raise the debt ceiling if you don't balance the budget.
$9 trillion?
I would hope that... Well, that basically gets them out of doing it again for this entire administration, which is what they want to do. But I think, look, I happen to agree with President-elect Trump. They should be repealing Obamacare piece by piece as they find replacements. I don't think Republicans want to have 23 million people out there worried that they're going to lose their insurance and have Democrats blame Republicans for it. I think there are steps that can be taken. You could take a number of steps right this minute that will move us in the right direction, but it's got to be simultaneously repeal and replace. It can't be repeal now and hope, trust us, we'll be back in a year. Because nobody trusts politicians.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not going to trust. They're going to be anxiety. They're going to be worried the whole time. On the other hand, I do hope that the president-elect is going to take very seriously. He has huge opportunities to move to a balanced budget in his second term if he takes them. And as somebody who, as you know, actually brought about the only 4 balanced budgets in your lifetime, I'm very prepared to sit down with the director of OMB and others and lay out a plan to get to a balanced budget in his second term. I think it takes 5 or 6 years. I think it's doable, particularly if it's tied in with dramatic economic growth, really creating jobs, and moving America forward on a broad front.
What do you make?
That should be their goal.
So for all these years, and we talked a little bit about it last week, all these years, the White House has been hacked, Department of Defense has been hacked, the State Department's been hacked, the IRS, the Postal Service, the Office of Personnel Management, 22 million files in 2014 of Americans the Chinese hacked into. Obama never said a word about it. What do you make about this obsession to blame Russia, Iran, China, North Korea? Oh, no, only Russia because it deals with Donald Trump. Why haven't they fixed this problem knowing for the last decade we were being hacked so often?
Well, let me start and say, I think the intelligence officials should have resigned rather than agree to this kind of a stunt. They have discredited the intelligence agencies. They have weakened their credibility. They have made it harder to get the American people to believe them when they have something serious to say. And it's an absurdity. The President of the United States, President Obama, imposes sanctions a week before he gets a report and then expects us to believe that the report mattered. This whole thing is a political charade. It is designed to allow the left to say that Trump's not really president because the Russians did it. Hillary didn't really lose. The Russians did it. We don't have to rethink our ideology. The Russians did it. And frankly, I think it's just stupid. And I think it's very dangerous for President Obama once again to undermine American security by discrediting the intelligence agencies and asking his hand-picked political appointees to go out there and say things that they can't possibly back up. I mean, these reports are pathetically inadequate, and frankly are so general they don't matter much. We have a real problem with cyber. Don't misunderstand me.
We've had it for a decade.
As you pointed out, the North Koreans, the Chinese, etc. There's a real problem that's worthy of Trump taking it on as a real issue. But what Obama has done is disgraceful.
Well, it even happened in the 2008 election, but nobody wants to even focus on that fact. Mr. Speaker, 100 days are going to be very interesting when they begin, and thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be with you.
When we come back, Kellyanne Conway is here tonight, and Hollywood liberal Meryl Streep. She took shots at President-elect Donald Trump at the Golden Globes last night. Michelle Malkin, she'll weigh in on that. And all the other left-wing lunacy, and Dr. Sebastian Gorka will weigh in on the issue of children now killing in the name of ISIS.
Kelly Wright, good evening. Here's what's happening. A massive manhunt is underway in Orlando, Florida, for the suspect in the shooting death of a female police officer. Hundreds of officers from multiple police agencies are looking for 41-year-old Markeith Lloyd. He's being urged to turn himself in. Lloyd is suspected of the shooting death of Master Sergeant Deborah Clayton outside of Walmart. He is also wanted for questioning in the shooting death of his pregnant ex-girlfriend last month. The United States announcing economic sanctions against 5 more Russians. The new sanctions follow last week's release of an unclassified intelligence assessment connecting Russian President Vladimir Putin to the hacking of Democratic accounts. However, U.S. officials say the latest sanctions are unrelated to the hacking and is instead punishment for human rights violations. And that's a look at news. I'm Kelly Wright. Now back to Hannity.
On health care, we will repeal and replace Obamacare. We're going to have health care that's much less expensive and will be much better, much stronger.
President-elect Donald Trump has promised to repeal and replace Obamacare. Now, yesterday, former Senator Rick Santorum had this to say about where Congress stands on a replacement plan for this disastrous health care law. Watch this.
The most important thing he needs to focus on is delivering on the agenda that he set, and that is, number one, repealing Obamacare. And I know there's a big fight about repeal and replace, but we have to repeal Obamacare.
So you don't think it needs to be replaced immediately?
I think it should be, the process should be started to replace. And there's a lot of discussion going on right now in the House and Senate as to how to do that. I'm frankly shocked that they don't have a plan, that they haven't really prepared for this. I know it's not going to be an easy thing to do, but they should have put a little bit more work into it than now here in the interim trying to figure out a plan forward. But no one, to at least my knowledge to date, has a real clear plan on how to do that, and that's a big problem.
Here now with reaction is the counselor to President-elect Donald Trump, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, I know there are 9 competitive plans. I know Tom Price, I've interviewed him specifically about his plan. I've interviewed the president-elect about what his plan is. Why is there not a consensus yet? And does the president-elect believe that if we repeal it, we need the replacement right away?
We need to repeal and replace it. There is a consensus on some of the operating principles, which is very important to that ultimate plan, Sean. First, that people who rely on care now will not be stripped of their coverage. The beneficiaries don't have to worry and listen to the hard left that's trying to scare them into believing that they will lose their coverage. That is not true. Secondly, we need to repeal that Obamacare tax right away. The penalty is really part of the burden that has bothered so many Americans from the beginning. It's why Republicans won in 2010, 2014, 2016 in large part, which is people don't like what's happened with Obamacare. That penalty is draconian. It comes from the government. Premiums have increased in some places by 50 to 100%. Choices are fewer. Quality is less. Prices are higher, and access has been diminished. The other operating principles are that this will be patient-centric, not government-centric health care, that you'll be able to purchase health insurance across state lines, that you will have a health savings account with your name on it, Sean, so that you can have better control of your spending. People don't take the rental car to a car wash before they turn it in, so some people aren't mindful of healthcare spending if they don't control the purse strings. So there are elements that are free market that have been bandied about for a while, and that will be part of the replacement plan.
He was very clear to me in the interviews that I had with him in the town halls about portability, pre-existing conditions, competition, right, job to job, healthcare savings accounts. So that is in line with Tom Price. So it's a matter of specifically putting the plan together. Did he tell Rand Paul, in fact, that we shouldn't repeal it until we have the full replacement so it's ready to go?
I don't know what he told Senator Paul specifically, but I just know in speaking with the president-elect daily about this issue, how he feels about it. It should be no secret to everyone that when he says he'll repeal it and replace it, he means it. He ran on it. He will do it. And I would mention to everyone, Sean, that in 2010, the Republicans won in large part because of their commitment to repeal and replace Obamacare, and 2/3 of the Republican Congress was elected in 2010 or more recently. And why is that important? Because they've all made that promise to repeal and replace Obamacare. And it's important that they happen in quick succession. Here's the other thing. When, a lot of these members of Congress have voted to repeal it, but they've never had an opportunity to replace it because they had the author of Obamacare, President Obama, vetoing those measures. But they need to make good on these promises. Obamacare is the best example that many Americans have of how invasive, intrusive, expensive, and expansive the federal government is in your life. I think it would be a mistake to get rid of the penalties and not get rid of the regulations. Some Republicans are openly talking about that. You really need to gut the most corrosive aspects of Obamacare. And again, pre-existing conditions, very popular. Keeping people on coverage who have it, popular.
But it's not going to look anything like Obamacare. Just because I read these, the way people portray this is interesting, because that's not what I heard in the interviews I had with him. Let me give you another example. So it came up last week, and I had to go to the Trump Town Hall archives of the Hannity show to get the answer.
Right.
Because I said to him, well, he's going to build the wall, Mexico will pay for the wall. And a number of times, I asked him, well, they're not going to write you a check. And he goes, yeah, I know that. This is how we're going to do it. Let me roll the tape.
Right.
One other thing we have to say, and Mexico will pay for the wall. They're going to pay for the wall.
Let me ask you about that. They're not going to write you a check. How do you get them to pay for the wall?
Well, there are many ways. Look, on trade, they're absolutely killing us. They're killing us. They're killing us at the border. They're killing us on trade. We have a trade deficit with Mexico of close to $60 billion a year. So right there, you can build the wall because the wall's a fraction of that. So, right there.
And he met with the president of Mexico, who's willing to redo NAFTA. So why are some people saying, oh, now he's asking for appropriations? That's what he said.
That's what he said. It's always what he promised. You know who heard him loudly and clearly? The American people. And they responded to that. Look, the president-elect made clear last week, Sean, that maybe Congress will pay for it first to speed up the process. But the full intent and plan is to then have Mexico reimburse us for it. This is the way the appropriations process goes. Anybody who says anything differently is lying and is doing so for political reasons. I know firsthand that building the wall is part of some of his initial urgent propositions in his first couple weeks and months on the job. He ran on it, and people who bet against Donald Trump will continue to be sorely disappointed. I can't believe 2 months after his historic win, folks are still trying to parse his words and trying to play gotcha with him. I'm going to bet on him coming out ahead on that one.
All right, Kellyanne, good luck in your job. It's always good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
And up next, Reverend Al Sharpton. Well, he reportedly is calling for a, quote, season of civil disobedience in reaction to Senator Jeff Sessions' nomination. In other words, another smear tactic by the left. We'll explain then later. The liberal Hollywood elite spewed their hatred about President-elect Trump last night. Up next, Michelle Malkin has reaction, and ISIS now reportedly releasing a video showing kids maybe assassinating innocent people. Dr. Orko will react to this disturbing image. Against President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Now, this includes the Reverend Al Sharpton. He's going to spearhead the effort, according to PJ Media, against him. Quote, it's going to be a season of civil disobedience because of Sessions' nomination. Here's a reminder of what Al Sharpton has said in the past. Take a look.
I'm tired of the mac and beef. You ain't nothing. You a punk. Now come on, do something.
We're the best chicken fries in the universe. We don't go buy some kind of sandwich chicken. Folks was in the cave when we had built empires. We learned to admire them, but they knew to admire us. We built pyramids before Donald Trump ever knew what architecture was. Yes. You want to be the only on television, the only in the newspaper, the only can talk.
And Al Sharpton, who's leading the charge, he's not alone. Michael Moore, he's promising to do this.
Trump gets upset if there's 10 people outside Trump Tower. He tweets about it. Unfair. The day after he wins, right? He's won. And he goes, protesters down on the street. There's like 10 people. Unfair. It's like, it's true. It's right? That, yeah. No, he did. That's the word he used. And it's like, wow. What's he going to think if there's 100,000 or 500,000? I mean, no, it's so important that we all, everybody who can go there, go there.
Joining us now, two people who know Senator Sessions well. Former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Joe diGenova, and the founder and president of the Woodson Center. Now, he's worked close to Senator Sessions. Bob Woodson is with us. Good to see you both, Joe. You can see this coming. I laid out the history of the smearing in every election season. Clarence Thomas, Robert Bork. This is just standard operating procedure. How will Jeff Sessions respond to this?
Well, first of all, Sean, he's going to be a great witness because he is a good and decent man. He's an honorable person. He's served the country well as an attorney general in the state of Alabama, as a United States attorney. As you indicated, he's prosecuted members of the Ku Klux Klan, got a life sentence for one and a death penalty for another. The Democrats have gone out of their way to line up a group of misfits, liars, perjurers, and miscreants to try to attack Senator Sessions. This time it's not going to work. He's going to be introduced by a moderate to liberal senator from Maine, Susan Collins, who supports his nomination along with all of the Republicans. They tried in 1986 and succeeded to smear him with lies from two witnesses, all of which was later proven to be false by sworn affidavits from FBI agents, assistant U.S. attorneys. Senator Sessions is going to do very well, and the reason is very simply, he has done good and done very well the entire time he's been in the United States Senate.
Bob Woodson, you know Senator Sessions. You see these allegations creeping up. How does the left justify making the face of this, leading the charge, the Reverend Al Sharpton, with all the things that he said back in the past? How's that possible?
Well, first of all, as a veteran of the civil rights movement myself, I'm appalled that that movement has dwarfed into a race grievance industry where they use the rich legacy of the civil rights movement as a bludgeon against their political opponents and as a shield to protect themselves from personal responsibility. It's ironic, Sean, that a delegation in 2001, a delegation from Lowndes County, Alabama, that's 43 miles from the Selma to Montgomery March, where conditions of poor blacks in there are worse than they are back 50 years ago. They came to Washington to meet with their local congressional representative, member of the Black Caucus, to seek relief for 35 families that were threatened from ejection from their house from a court order because they had raw sewage on the ground, and they were offered tickets to a boat ride, and instead they came into my office, and I came into Lowndes County and called Jeff Sessions, and we worked together over the next 5 years to not only bring relief to those 35 families, but to address the myriad of other problems facing them. They had no recreation center in the county. The schools had coal-burning stoves. They had to close the school. There's no internet access, no recreation center. Jeff Sessions helped organize 75 business leaders in Washington. We were able to raise millions of dollars to help those folks.
Let me ask you both this. Is it going to work, Joe diGenova?
No, it's not. It's not going to work this time. Because the truth is that Senator Sessions has served his country well. The people now know that all of the things that were said about him in 1986 were absolutely false. And I'll give you another reason. Isn't it fascinating that the Democratic senators are using Al Sharpton as their point person on this? These are the same senators who for 20 years were led by Robert Byrd, a Democrat, who had been a member of, who had been a leader of the Ku Klux Klan in West Virginia.
Hillary's
that started
mentor.
his political career.
Hillary's mentor. All right, I got to run, guys, but I have a homework assignment for this audience. Watch tomorrow, because you're going to see what Clarence Thomas went through, what Bork went through, and what we go through every 4 years. They play the race card, and it's ugly and it's disgusting. Thank you both for being with us. And up next, last night at the Golden Globes, liberal actress Meryl Streep took cheap shots at President-elect Donald Trump. Michelle Malkin, she has reaction. Also disturbing new images released by ISIS. Look at that. Young boys holding guns and knives on prisoners and maybe killing them. Dr. Sebastian Gorka will weigh in.
Would you like your loved ones to never worry about money?
It's the Hollywood elites. They got together for the first of many self-congratulatory award shows slated for 2017. And while those in attendance spent most of the night patting each other all over the back, Meryl Streep decided to bash our incoming commander-in-chief. Take a look.
You and all of us in this room really belong to the most vilified segments in American society right now. Think about it. Hollywood, foreigners, and the press. So Hollywood is crawling with outsiders and foreigners. And if we kick them all out, you'll have nothing to watch but football and mixed martial arts, which are not the arts. When the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country imitated a disabled reporter, it kind of broke my heart when I saw it, and I still can't get it out of my head because it wasn't in a movie. It was real life. Disrespect invites disrespect. Violence incites violence. When the powerful use their position to bully others, we all lose.
All right, true to form, President-elect Trump, he responded on Twitter, writing, quote, Meryl Streep, one of the most overrated actresses in Hollywood, doesn't know me, but attacked me last night at the Golden Globes. She is a Hillary flunky who lost big. For the 100th time, I never mocked a disabled reporter, would never do that, but simply showed him groveling when he totally changed the 16-year-old story that he had written in order to make me look bad. Just more very dishonest media. Joining us now, the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates, CRTV.com. You know, actually, I got to give Joe Concha credit at the Hill because he went back. And I'll just run the video, not the audio with it, of all the examples of Trump using his hands in the exact same way he supposedly used it when, quote, mocking this reporter, which he didn't do. It's been debunked. But what is your reaction in general?
Well, in general, this idea that fake news is the big problem in America is fake news itself. The problem is fake people like Meryl Streep who mistake their acting abilities for intelligence and who mistake their box office appeal, which has been dwindling on her part for a long time now, for political appeal. These are marginal people who live in a bubble, and they are very desperate to cling to whatever iota of relevance they still have in public life. You know what they should have done, Sean, is send some therapy dogs into that Golden Globes theater, because that's what these people need.
The snowflakes need some help, the poor little snowflakes. You know, all these celebrities, now Leonardo DiCaprio stands out as the great hypocrite in this, but all of them are just so pathetic. A goodbye video to poor President Obama. They can't handle what has just happened. The American people. Look, I love MMA and I love football, okay? So I'm one of those bitter Americans clinging to my God, guns, Bible, and religion. But listen to how pathetic these people are.
You know, you felt those first three words of the Constitution, we the people. Like, it was one of those first times in my life that I felt like I was really part of that we.
He just changed all the rules on the table in regards to Cuba with the most succinct motivation imaginable.
I heard our president say that climate change is the most important issue facing not only this generation, but all future generations.
We got the Affordable Care Act passed because I have relatives that, can't afford health insurance. So it was really a great thing to know that if something happened to them, they get cared for.
Obama kissed the rings of murdering dictators in Cuba. And number two, Leonardo DiCaprio, he wanted to celebrate New Year's Eve twice. So he flew from Australia to Vegas on a private plane, and he's lecturing us about global warming. Really? Climate change?
Really, and of course he's lectured the American people about greed when this is a guy who's been knee-deep with corrupt Malaysian officials and has yet to give back their money. Spare us the lectures about diversity and tolerance and goodness and understanding, Hollywood. Really, there's no one nastier and more intolerant and more hypocritical than these people in Hollywood, and they are proving, as they did last night and with slavering videos like that, why they lost. Instead of having some measure of self-introspection and humility, they're doubling and tripling down on their open contempt for the majority of the American people.
Isn't that what it all is, though? In other words, all that red that we show on the map, the people that work hard, play by the rules, pay their taxes, obey the laws, they have contempt. All these people live in millionaire lifestyles, expensive wines and dinners, sort of like cable hosts who are all overpaid. And these people seem so out of touch with those people out of work, in poverty, on food stamps, they can't buy a house. And finally, we might have an opportunity to turn it around, and they just hate the guy.
Right, and they're so bitter, and they were such grievance mongers. You know who they should be mad at? Hillary Clinton. They poured tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of their money into her coffers, and what was their return on investment? They are directing their anger at the wrong people.
And by the way, I mean me too. I honestly, these people are so out of touch. They need to do some real work some years in their life and get in touch with people that are really struck. 13 million more on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, the lowest home ownership rate, 51 years, double the debt. It's ridiculous. Michelle, thank you. Appreciate it. And coming up, ISIS purportedly releases a video showing children being used as executioners. Dr. Gorka weighs in straight ahead.
Don't let a cracked windshield ruin your plans. Trust SafeLight. With SafeLight's exclusive On My Way.
So over the weekend, Harvey Levin and TMZ obtained footage of the Florida airport shooting. We've got to warn you, what you're about to see is extremely disturbing. In the video, you see the shooter, Esteban Santiago, walking through baggage claim. His gun was tucked right there in the blue shirt in his waistband. He then begins shooting, sending travelers running for their lives. And in other tragedy and brutality, ISIS is on full display now after the terror group purportedly released a new video, which shows a young boy holding a gun at a prisoner and another child standing over a captive with a knife. And they even showed one video of a young man actually holding the head of a beheaded man. Barbaric. Joining us now, the author of Defeating Jihad, Fox News counterterrorism strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Do you have any doubt, looking at these images, and I wish we could show them all, but we can't. Do you have any doubt that these kids did this at the behest of ISIS, or do you think that they just had the kids stand there with the gun, or had the kids stand there with the beheaded photo?
Not at all, Sean. I watch these videos in their entirety. That's my job, to look at these things, even if they're stomach churning. In fact, very recently, my wife and I published a report exclusively on this topic at our website, threatknowledge.org, explicitly about ISIS exploitation of minors. We got access to the textbooks they're using in the jihadi schools. They teach children, Sean, how to count by using Kalashnikovs. 1 Kalashnikov, 2 Kalashnikov. This is the future threat of jihad. And the importance of this, the importance of this, Sean, is it blows out of the water the Obama administration's argument that terrorism is the result of poverty, lack of education, and unemployment. A 10-year-old child doesn't have a job to be fired from. This is about pure
That's
evil.
really well said. You know, in light of the Democrats having ignored all the cyber attacks on the White House, State Department, DOD, Office of Personnel Management, and trying to advance this narrative, they've done nothing. For 10 years, we've known these attacks are happening at every government agency, done nothing. Donald Trump said, well, isn't it a good relationship with Russia? Isn't that a good thing? And only stupid people would think it's bad. That doesn't say in any way that we trust Putin, does it? That doesn't say in any way that we trust Russia or China or North Korea or Iran. It just says maybe if Russia wants to partner and defeat ISIS, we partnered but never trusted them in World War II. General Patton certainly never did.
Right.
To defeat Nazi Germany. You know, you could still work with enemies on certain projects, and maybe defeating ISIS is one of them. Is that a good thing?
Look, my father was tortured and imprisoned by communists, so you're not going to get me to say nice things about Russia or Vladimir Putin, who was a KGB officer, let's remember that. But you're absolutely right. We allied with bad guys to get rid of worse guys. That's what the history of World War II is about. There's this famous saying that politics is the art of the possible. Well, so is strategy. You don't make the ideal the enemy of the good. If you've got 10-year-old children beheading and shooting unarmed men to death, you've got to stop that threat first. And if there's somebody...
Last question then.
Yeah.
Is it possible to defeat ISIS without sending ground troops in? My fear is we send them in, they do their job, they fight, bleed, and die, win Ramadi, Mosul, Tikrit, Fallujah, Baghdad, and then we politicize the war like we did last time, like we did in Vietnam, and we give back all that we gained. Is there a way to do it without ground troops?
Absolutely. And if you talk to General Flynn, if you read the speeches by President-elect Trump, it is very clear. This is not a neocon administration that wants to invade other countries. We are going to help with embedded troops, with intelligence, with training, local actors to fight this war.
They've got to fight the war on their own turf.
With our help, but they have to stand up and fight it themselves, because it doesn't make sense for us to do it for them. We can help them, Sean, but it's going to have to be the Muslims who want to be our friends that destroy ISIS.
All right, Dr. Gorka, as always, very informative, very scary to see these images, frightening. All right, when we come back, we need your help. A very important question of the day as we continue right here tonight on Hannity. Producer. She really believes that Meryl Streep owes President-elect Trump an apology. I say yes, of course she does, but it's never going to come. We still want to know what you think. Go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, at Sean Hannity on Twitter, where I occasionally make a mistake or two. Oh, well, nobody's perfect. That's all the time we have left this evening. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.
The O'Reilly Factor's on tonight. Man,